interview that they've done as a candidate, and they're only going to get better with time. But it was kind of contrary. It didn't necessarily fit. You know, if you run a strong campaign, I think that consistency is important, because for many this might be the first time they saw him in a live setting behind a camera, and I don't think that's going to affect him negatively, but I think as a learning point moving forward, I think what they see with the candidate and the campaign should be consistent throughout.
And I think when you got a guy like that who obviously has the money to get a lot of signs out there, get a lot of ads out there. First thing in my mind is when I see him on a forum like this, I want to know if he's legit. Is he the real deal, or is it a case of like, let me throw all these signs and all these ads at you because there's something lacking, and I'm going to try and drown you out with a bunch of confetti. I don't know.
I know. He looks like he's ready to unload.
I know. He's just sitting
First thing I want to say tonight, all three of the candidates, I think they're all wonderful. And absolutely 100%. And there's another thing. You think the candidates were nervous? I'm nervous. Look, I'm sitting behind or next to the guy who calls out the base commander, and then the other guy who's malfunctioned, and then the radical independent guy at the end. Bree, you're the only person I identify with here.
I can get pretty radical. Right. Don't count me out.
Very true.
Okay.
Oh, but
they probably feel the same way.
but I think, James Moylan, I think of all the candidates tonight, was the one who matches. He's doing, as you said, he's doing all the things that candidates usually do. He's putting himself out there in the same way. So I think out of the three, he's probably got the best chance because
he's definitely got the name.
Yeah,
the name.
He's got the name recognition, all of that. But then, so the issue though is is this another change election?
Right.
Because the last one was, and so a lot of established names got knocked out. And so this time is sort of doing the usual things. Is it going to be enough? Or are you going to have to sort of distinguish yourself in another way? Are you going to have to kind of put yourself out there even more, define yourself against the grain even? Because, and so that's why, that's what I'm waiting for. Is I'm waiting for, I'm waiting for a candidate who says, I'm going to raise taxes, and I'm going to raise taxes on these people. Because you think about it, and that's the type of stuff which defined Donald Trump against the grain, was that everyone else was saying the usual things. He puts himself out there and basically says, I'm going to do these things which are not popular which are not conventional,
right?
But it's attractive to people because they want change. And so who is going to be the agent of change?
Candidates in this election, I've started to see a lot of the rhetoric between the legislature and the outer loop. It's real adversarial, and I think they're taking a note from national politics. And, I feel like the envelope and the bar has been pushed so far that candidates running for legislature, they need to realize that, you can get away with saying anything nowadays, you know what I mean? And I think people are kind of waiting for that other shoe to drop. And when you get, and the candidates we had tonight, you couldn't pick three, more different people. You have, Ned Pablo, who's working class. You have, James Moylan coming from, the military, private sector background. And then you have Jave here, who's kind of like that know-it-all uncle that everyone has. But they kind of ended up playing back towards the middle on a lot of the questions.
Safe. And to what he was saying, I think, and I'm not trying to pick on James, but I think it was a missed opportunity. The first question that came out, I think, was the one question that could have set him apart from the rest. And when he was asked, what would be the first law that you would introduce? And 30 seconds, well, I have a lot.
Right.
But nothing was actually
shared. So many I can't think of
one. I can't think of a single one. And this is not to knock him, but I think it was a missed opportunity to really set himself apart from everybody else, to show people that he has something that people can talk about, something people can gather around, aside from the usual rhetoric as he's saying, well, yeah, I support police, I support education, I support the people.
Right.
The people want solutions now, and in the legislature right now, solutions are difficult to not only come up with, but to agree upon and move forward. These are not easy situations moving forward.
Dr. McNinch, did you think that the people that we had on the couch tonight were trying to be all things to all people?
Chris, call me Ron. Everybody call me Ron when you see me, okay? No doctor. You know, when people in my field, I teach bureaucracy. When people say doctor, people are actually thinking proctologist. Okay, so we try to be a little bit careful. Key thing, and they're trying to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
You're not going to win by making everybody happy. There's another thing. That legislature, that nice new Congress building, is going to be virtually empty. Nobody seems to be wanting to run for the legislature again. No offense.
No.
But you should have ran again. Everybody I know says you should have ran again. Why didn't you run again?
Right?
That's the reality. The reality is, where are all these people that should be running? Good people that should be running. Don't get me wrong. BJ's leaving for a good reason. His heart is with the auditor's position. He's going to be running for that. But other than that, we're probably going to have a majority of women run the legislature in the next.
That's not a bad thing.
That's right.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's going to be different. That's what I'm saying.
And we got 3 of you guys on this couch tonight that I think if all 3 of you had run, we'd be looking at 3 future senators. You know what I mean?
Why don't all 5 of us run? Right in. We could do it right in.
I said this the last time. It's good that more people are running, more people are seeing this process, and actually, hopefully, more new people. And I'm fine with more new people getting in there and seeing how complicated it really is. And you guys in the media even understand that you can only report on so much. But you hear it all the time how much more there is, how much more context there is to all of the things going on within our government, and there are no simple solutions. Truth be told, I think most of us who've been in the government a long time know there are no simple solutions.
That's to speak to that. I mean, because getting new candidates, getting new blood in there it can be good, but you got to think. Are they, just because they're new doesn't necessarily mean that they're better.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do a better job. And so what Senator Esteves is talking about is that it takes a particular skill set to work in a deliberative democratic body. So you can get elected by promising the moon and the stars, but can you work with people? Can you sort of coerce people to come along to something? Can you get the votes that you need? Can you push something through? And so I encourage people, when you meet with candidates, kind of try to get that sense of them. Not because they're going to try to make you happy. They're going to try to promise you everything. They're going to say, I have all this land, beachside property in down south I'm going to sell you. It can be all yours if you just vote for me. But think about them in that room with 14 other people. How are they going to respond? Are they going to kind of grab their stuff and run out of the room if somebody disagrees with them? Are they going to hide in their office because people don't like them? Are they going to leave office and run off to another office because people don't agree with them?
Who are you talking about here? I can think of like 4 senators.
No, for me though, tonight we were talking about how we didn't really hear a whole lot of solutions. But at the end of the day, like with Ned, for me, right. I know what I'm going to get, at least because in his closing speech, he only said like 10 seconds, and it was indigenous rights.
Right.
So is that enough, do you think, to be elected?
I think despite all that, right, if you kind of remove some of the layers that, I'm sure that really empowered people, but at the same time, that probably turned some people off. But when you remove the layers, I mean, I think one thing that really impressed me about such a comment, like you said, you know what you're going to get. Mm-hmm. That type of honesty and genuineness, that's something to elect a candidate on. I mean, you don't always see that in government. I mean, I think that really speaks to him as a candidate.
With those, out of the 3 guys, I mean, Ned was definitely, you talk about branding. I mean, Sabrina's right. You know what you're going to get. And I thought that he really showed more diversity in answering a lot of the questions because, I mean, I know what I'm getting with Ned, and I really thought that every answer was going to be like, Chamorro rights, the federal government did this, but he was really wide on his answers. And I
DOC.
thought
he said, you have to address recidivism. I said it right, recidivism.
Right.
You have to rehabilitate the inmates there. So, I mean, you're
right.
right.
I thought,
he
I thought
was
it was
able to answer the questions.
It was a different Ned Pablo that we saw tonight.
Ron, what?
First, I try to avoid 5-syllable words. But the key thing, I wish we would change the way we voted for people. I wish we could have 10 votes for candidates and 5 votes against. So then we can pick the people we really don't like and send them a message, we don't like them. That's the first thing. Second thing, we only have 15 senators. I ask my students all the time, where are the Angel Santoses anymore? When we went from 21 down to 15, what we did is we centralized the margin, and now we have everybody in the center, and everybody wants to make everybody happy. And that's leading back to what Michael said. I don't want people who are going to make people happy all the time. Mm-hmm. I want people who are going to have contrasting opinions. I want people who are going to fight a little bit. Show me you have heart, and I'll vote for you.
Yeah, and so I have to agree with that. That
Me
in the
too.
past,
More Angel Santoses.
in the past with 21, you could get candidates that were strong in a particular way that represented a particular interest in. They didn't necessarily have to compromise in the same way. But now, everybody kind of has the same looking signs. Everyone has the same looking the same sounding message, and so. But I did appreciate Ned kind of trying to, because this is what Angel Santos did, is that when he ran, is that he was pigeonholed as just he's this Chamorro, he's only for Chamorros, and then he tried to sort of expand his message that I'm actually a human rights activist, and I'm actually somebody who will fight for the impoverished. And so he did a lot of outreach with poor working class Filipinos and Micronesians, basically saying, I'll fight for you. I'll fight for everyone who comes from that position. And so, with somebody like Ned, he can kind of seize the same populist sort of, classist kind of message.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because you're absolutely right. When human rights activists, so let me elaborate. In the simplest terms, if you see a guy fighting so passionately and so hard for something they truly believe in, and with that kind of genuineness and that kind of heart, I think when you're in the position where you need somebody like that to fight for you, you would want them there. And I think that really appeals to a lot of people to know. Obviously everyone knows about the protests, and I got a lot back
I wasn't
from
going to
that.
say anything.
But truth be told, right? When your back's against the wall and you think nobody's there and nobody believes you, and you now become the disadvantaged, disenfranchised, super minority in whatever issue, not necessarily based on race, you want that guy there fighting for you when you think nobody else is going to. I think there's something to be said about that. I think that appeals to a lot of people.
But in a legislature of 15 senators, let me ask you this, Ron. How valuable is a fighter? I mean, we've got a couple fighters in there, and I think fighters, 21 senators is a good place. I think with Ned tonight, he showed a lot of solutions, but people, they kind of want haters. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll tell you the key thing is, and this is the key thing, is when you have the spread where you have people who are on the outsides, they generate ideas that are really taken to the center.
Right.
But the center will never talk about them because they're too scared to death of being out of the center. But they can kind of steal. So for example, we have Social Security in the United States. That came from Debs, a socialist, and then Franklin Delano Roosevelt picked up on it and ran with it and turned it into a mainstream issue. Same thing with Ross Perot. He ran in '92. He made fiscal responsibility the catchphrase. Right. Nobody cared about fiscal responsibility before Ross Perot, but he ran as an outsider, and he was able to push the idea.
So you think that a candidate like Ned being kind of a fringe, but with Chamorro rights and everything that's going on with Particular Texan, we're seeing more of these issue-oriented candidates in this election. I mean, you've got a few of them.
I think any of the three that were here tonight can win. They're all wonderful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, they all bring a different flavor, and I even said this in the last interview. The legislature or any body of representatives is supposed to be made up of the butcher, baker, candlestick maker. We don't want 15 candlestick makers or 15 butchers. We want a different flavor from each, because that best represents the population, and when they asked me why I ran at the time when I ran, is because I didn't feel people were representing me. I didn't feel that people were necessarily looking at the issues purely on the issues without the sensitivities and politics behind it. Obviously, I was wrong on a lot of it, but, I think they all bring something to the table, and they all represent a constituency group within the community. It's a beautiful thing.
What about Javier? We haven't talked about Javier.
He really reminds me of the senatorial candidates of the past. So I find him I connect with him in that way. They kind of they speak their mind in a particular way. They're always quick to say. I like what you said, that he's sort of the uncle who
Right.
who tells you about the world, and
Not always right, though.
you wonder where he gets his information from sometimes, but it's always interesting
Yeah.
telling him,
Yeah, yeah.
listening to him.
Hey, he
and-
believes it.
And so, but I mean, I have to agree that I think every candidate has their strengths, but I do always have to say that what you see here is always just the surface. And so, how are they going to be if, for example, the three people here were all fighting with each other, or all came at it from different angles? Like, could one of the three make the peace, bring the ideas together, synthesize? Could one of them neutralize the other side and sort of bring the conversation closer towards them? And so I encourage everyone, because Guam is small. So when you see your candidates, when they come up to you at your Lasodzu, at your party, when you're barbecuing and they jump up behind you and ask for your vote, talk to them for a while and push them past the surface and see how they respond. Because you can't do that with your senators like in the States, in California or something like that. But on Guam, you could literally have like a stamp card and meet every single one.
I thought Javier was one of the more opinionated ones.
Definitely.
When they asked about the Guam Memorial Hospital, he said, they're overstaffed with administrators. They asked about the part-time legislators, like cut them down to 11. How about that? So.
Yeah.
Scary.
And then the medicinal marijuana comment. What did he say?
They need the
It's all about
medicine.
it.
It helps with sleeping and eating.
Right.
I wonder if he ever has smoked marijuana. That was my question I had. I mean, that's the. Now, hey, you know what? There's a secret about Guam elections. People don't vote on thinking things. They vote on feeling things. It's how people feel. And so if people felt good with any of these three gentlemen that were here tonight, that's how they're going to vote for them. I think all three of them had some kind of buffet item feeling-wise that appealed to a certain sector of the electorate.
Yeah, but all 30 can make you feel good,
Yeah.
when you hear them all at the end of the day. And then,
there's something to be said about that, though. I've sat with different candidates, who approached me, who decided to run. I have those even on both sides that I support within the new candidate pool, and I tell them the same thing. When you make that personal connection to somebody, Guam is kind of really unique in that, in that people are very willing to give their trust first, and there's a responsibility, not to break it, to do your best. And I think that plays out in politics, where you see everybody very center-massed, right? They don't want to step on any toes, right? This person trusted me with their vote, also this person, even though they're on two completely different sides of the aisle. And it leaves us stuck in the middle. As far as new candidates go, when they run, it really takes a lot to earn somebody's vote and their trust. And that's why you're not only standing out necessarily as the guy out there in a chicken suit or something like that. Anybody can stand out for a good reason or a bad reason. But I think when you take that extra effort to make a personal connection with somebody, and I think he says this a lot, shaking somebody's hand, asking them for their vote, or taking the time to sit with them, talk to them, returning their phone calls. Yeah. When they call you, making yourself accessible. Those things go a long way to earning that trust, and they'll remember that going into the voting, into the vote polls.
For 18 months, nobody's returned my phone calls. Now everybody is. What's going on with that?
Something fishy.
They're not returning your phone calls.
I think Javier, though, with a slogan like Mangatsungi, is a really critical guy. I mean, you're right, though, he really had very strong opinions. Solutions, I don't know. He was basically saying, we need to look at everything. Can't trust them. Fire the management.
Yeah.
Are those solutions?
No. I mean, you have to take a balanced approach to a lot that's going on. There are always 2, 3, 4 sides to the story. So, while maybe the news shows me I might be hard in this instance on GMH, I'm well aware on the issues that they're facing, right? I have the data, I have information in front of me, I talk with them, and we work in different situations and scenarios. So, you can't necessarily isolate the entire situation on one news article, one news report, or a scenario being played out. I think when you're coming into public office, and you're going to be sitting in that position, you have that individual responsibility now to make sure your information is as accurate as you can possibly get it. And that takes a lot more than a handful of news articles. It's a lot of information.
That's why, I guess going back to James Moylan, I mean, one of the reasons why you might look to him as a good candidate is because he has experience in the type of government work which you would be asked to do as a senator.
Right.
And sometimes people look down on that because you're part of the bureaucracy, you're part of the problem. But, you know, if you elect somebody who's never run an office before, who's never worked in a bureaucracy before, sometimes they thrive, a lot of times they sink, or they really struggle because, you know, if you, like, sometimes if you go from the private sector where you kind of controlled your own business, you could hire and fire people, and then suddenly you go into a bureaucracy where there's a lot more restraints. And so you may want somebody...
Guilty.
You may want somebody who has worked in that, who can, you know, who basically has a better sense of it, will possibly be more reliable.
I mean, he has a lot of experience, military, DOC.
Does experience matter, though, do you think, Ron?
No. No, you can take a hand puppet and put him in the legislature and the staff will do the work. That's the reality, unless you have a person who has the will to do otherwise.
Yeah.
In some respect, right?
You a hand puppet?
No.
Who's got their hand?
I've gotten those, right? Because, you know,
Is that right?
I'm a Lincoln Republican, right? So, you know, I'm conservative on most things. I'm actually probably lean more to very liberal as it comes to with my ideology on individual freedom, right, and responsibility. So sometimes that throws people off, especially in my own party, when I come out with something like, you know, a transgender bill, which is for many people is kind of completely out of the realm of what they would expect from a traditional Republican. But I think that's why it's important to know your candidate and know things about them, know what makes them different, right? Do they lean far to the left, far to the right? Are they in the middle? Are they a Republican or Democrat in name alone? And regardless of what the party affiliation is, it still comes down to the mere fact that you need to do your best to try to know and understand the person that you might be giving your vote to.
I think it's also important to know the people that are going into the polls to know what, you know,
Yeah.
the issues are. You know.
I think the issues are pretty simple. I mean, everybody knows what the issues are. And I mean, people who come up here, like a guy like Javier, I mean, you know, a lot of opinions, not many solutions, but I'm pretty sure there were a lot of people watching tonight who were agreeing with him, you know what I mean, who were sitting there saying, yeah, you tell him, yeah, I like this guy, he's a maverick, you know what I mean?
I think there's a disconnect though, you know, and the caution moving forward, because I was the same candidate. I didn't do it in such a way, but you know, and I'll admit this, I'm not running again. When I was a candidate, it was a very easy moniker, right? Oh yeah, the government right now, they're just so stupid. We just need to do this. Problem solved.
Right.
I admit it, and you know, I'm humbled. I'm humbled by having the opportunity to be in the position now. But I think once you're in that office, then it's no longer that you can't use that anymore. You can't sit there, point a finger all day long. You have to sit there, try to work through a solution, and if you have nothing, it might seem like you're quiet. And that doesn't mean things are not happening, people are not working. But that kind of maverick, that kind of rhetoric should, if they get elected, really kind of pass and fade, and really we need to look at the statesman approach to policy.
One of the things to make a distinction about here is that getting yourself elected is completely different than proving that you are a good senator or a good leader, right? I mean, a lot of the conversation here has been about how you get elected, and you can get elected, you know, without necessarily being somebody who will be great at the job. Sometimes people shine, they pull through, they show that they rise to the occasion. Other times people kind of disappear, they fade out or something like that. And so, you know, as voters, you kind of have to think, and you have to think about that. Is like, are you voting for somebody because, you know, they look really nice, and then what does that say about us? What does that say about you? And it's hard. You know, it's hard. A lot of democracies, you don't have that kind of self-reflection because it is a popularity contest. It is sort of like that. And so, I don't know.
You know, I think that it takes a lot of heart to run for races, but also you know, it is at the end of the day, I really think, and Fernando, you mentioned it earlier a little bit too. You got to ask people for their vote. You got to show people that you can be trusted. I think that's part of the equation. That is, people have to feel that they can trust you, and they have to have that feeling about you. And it is an emotional kind of thing, I think. You know, Bree and Chris, you'd make great candidates. I trust both of y'all.
I don't look at it that. I mean, I'm a guy who goes in there and I don't vote for anybody because I can trust them. I'm the guy who votes against people. You know what I mean? I go in there and I mean, you might not have a lot of solutions, but if I feel like you're a guy who's going to stick his neck out and just, you know, I think every legislature needs like one or two people who are just going to question everything. You know what I mean? Those rabble rousers are kind of like devil's advocate kind of people, but. You're right, it is a popularity contest, and I think the electorate on Guam, when you guys talk about earning trust, I think the electorate is really forgiving. You know what I mean? You could have people totally blow it and then run again a term later and they get reelected. And
True.
I think some are devil's advocates, but I think some of them are Rosemary's Baby.
Like who?
I don't want to say
wonderful
They're all
people.
wonderful.
Wonderful.
You know,
Bonito
there's a difference, right, between playing devil's advocate in efforts of trying to craft really good policy, but it gets to a point sometimes where, you know, there's and it's a political maneuver that we see all the time in stateside politics, and it's being an obstructionist, and you know, doing everything outside of talking about the merits or talking about things objectively. To try to kill something. And again, it's a political strategy that occurs even in the federal government, in Congress, and the Senate.
Even in Agania.
Even in Agania. But, you know, it's something we just have to watch out for. But again, it's great that the electorate has more access to information than they've ever had before, and that only increases. It's just now that the electorate has all this power, right, and to his point, you know, how will they use it? How will they exercise it? You know? And I think there's always going to be a balance of both, right? The guy who likes the solution-oriented guy, the intelligent, or the intellectual, and then the guy who just, you know, wants to vote for Ned Pablo because he might not have all the answers, but I know I can trust him. He'll have my back. Right. He'll fight for me. So there's different flavors, and it represents the island. I think it's working.
Yeah. There's going to be
change election. Is this going to be a change election, Doc?
Oh, it's already changed. I mean, half of the legislature's gone.
Right.
Yeah.
So, of course, it's going to change. One other thing that we're going to see, because of social media and because of this opinion, I'd call it an opinion aggregation process where we all kind of nest together. There's this thing in my field we're calling the Maven effect, and that is you've got to watch for this in the next 3 to 4 years. Key people become the opinion leaders because people are actually too busy to keep up with every single one of the 30 candidates. So then they'll start looking to people to trust to listen to them. And that's the Maven aspect. And we're going to start seeing more and more of that.
You'll be cautious of that.
Yeah. Definitely.
Because those people wield a power that doesn't always get used in the right way.
You're right, and I can.
There's
think
a danger
of one,
to that.
You know, like for example, and I always bring him up every time we sit on this couch. Senator Mike Nicholas. I think a lot of people have a lot of faith in him. I think some of it's misplaced, but they don't do their homework, and they, like you said, a Maven effect, where they're just like, oh, this guy's got to know what's going on. I'm just going to eat everything up that he says. I'm going to eat his cotton candy or whatever.
I mean,
You know, we have many wonderful candidates in this race.
Yes, we do.
yeah, in a change election, you want to hopefully bring it down closer to the people. Like,
Right.
that's the hope, right? Because the candidates are not traditional, so it's not the traditional circuits of power. But part of that is the candidates go beyond the easy, and part of it is the people go beyond the superficial, the signs, go beyond the smiles and the nice hair.
Stuff works though, man. Signs, they work. You get like.
No, I like signs.
I mean, people with a lot of signs usually win.
You know, I want to tell the story real quick. I know.
Why is that?
I was
Psychological-
canvassing in
there's a
Dedido, and you know, I approached a family, and the gentleman invites me and one other candidate who was running in, and we talk and we meet his family, and you know, find out that, you know, his daughters, they work in the hospitality industry, and you know, they're telling me the struggles that they face, and I take that with me every single time. You know, if we're talking about considering a minimum wage increase or raising the taxes or repealing the taxes, I take each and every one of those stories with me. And so, you know, that weighs on an individual. Every candidate coming up here that's going to be in office, at least I hope as a voter, I hope that they take all of those personal stories with them as they make their deliberation. Because, you know, even though, like I said, I want the guy who's going to look at everything based on numbers and objectivity, there's no way, I guess, a good person would be able to ignore the subjective part and the human aspect of it all. Right. And that makes it so much more challenging. But it's not a bad thing either.
So you think this election is going to be another mandate? If you look at the spectrum of candidates we have the definite establishment types. You know what I mean? You've got, the staff assistants, the special assistants. On the other side, you've got, the guys who work 8 to 5, guys like Ned Pablo, guys, teachers. You know what I mean? People who are legitimately working class, and then in the center you've got the private sector people. So do you think that, judging by the results, and I know it's early, that people are going to have a definite say and make a statement about the type of candidates we want?
If it's a statement, we won't know the statement until after the results of the election are in. I think, it's not over till it's over.
Well, let's wrap this up. Just get your general final comments on what happened tonight and what you heard tonight, and maybe even just what you think is going to happen this election season. Ron?
Speak your mind. People out there, talk about who you like and don't like. And let people know your opinion and argue with people. Don't be afraid to argue. Don't be so nice.
Fernando.
Candidates just need to put themselves out there. The public's going to know who you are, and they're going to get an impression of you, either true or false, whether you're elected or not. So I think just taking a proactive effort, putting yourself out there so people going into the polls do their best to understand who you are, or you've done your best at the end of the day to try to show people who you really are and be real genuine. That's the best advice I could give.
Yeah, I have to agree. Push your candidates. Push them past their slogans. Push them past the pose they take on their signs. See what they got. Make them sweat a little bit. And if they come back and they surprise you and impress you, then they've earned your vote.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Dr. Bevacqua, Fernando Esteves, and Hellraiser Ron. Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
Wonderful guests tonight.
All right. Hey, this has been the Decision 2018 After Party. Be sure to check us out Wednesday. Who we got Wednesday?
Wednesday for D18 tonight, we've got senatorial candidates Will Castro, William Parkinson, and one more, Jeffrey Whedon.
Yes, so, okay, that's going to be pretty interesting,
yeah,
to say the least. Who are our panelists?
We're still figuring that out.
Oh, we're still figuring that. Don't ask that question. And on behalf of our guests tonight, Sabrina Salas Metanani, my name is Chris Barnett. Thank you so much for watching the D18 After Party. Adios.
Bye.
All right. Adios.